Hello and welcome to the show. This is Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. Thank you so much for joining us here on what some call a Wednesday. Thank you for joining us this morning, Mr. Davis. How are you feeling?
Some call it Wednesday. Is this like a reference to other languages or something? Do we change the name of Wednesday and I was not notified? I didn't get that memo, Rob.
People live in a variety of ways, Jason. I don't want to put anyone in a box, and there's no such thing as, totality in this world.
That's a good point. All right. You're being very philosophical today. I didn't know this is where we were headed, but maybe it's because you're under the weather and you're playing hurt, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, a little tummy bug kind of changes your perspective on all this. Don't drink Russian homemade liquors. I'll tell you that doesn't help.
Wow. See, you seem to get yourself into trouble with what you put into your stomach. Like a couple months ago, I remember some food poisoning issues.
Don't trust mollusks or
Russian liquor.
Russian liquor.
All right. Now that's taken care of.
It's all about, you get old and you discover new things to learn from,
Right.
But thank you everyone for joining us despite all of our trials to get here. We are here and we got a great show lined up for you. We got a great guest, Simon Evans, talking about the sale of Major League Soccer clubs, maybe even some new USL news. Talk about Pochettino putting out a video on American team pride and a bunch of good long balls. But before that, have you subscribed yet? If you haven't, hit the button now. We're over 2,000 subscribers and gaining with every single day. So if you haven't done it, just click that button and then tell your friends and family to do similar. You said there's, after hitting 2,000, there's some sort of benefit now?
Yeah. I got a bunch of stuff in this room. It's a bunch of soccer stuff. I mean, you can only see a small selection of it. You can see some scarves there, nicely displayed. You can see that's a popcorn tin from Aurora with a magnet from LA Galaxy on it for reasons I don't remember. There's books that you can't really see here, like lots of them, lots of good soccer books. I'm going to start giving some of this stuff away. It's lovely. Don't get me wrong. And I treasure every single item I've ever been gifted. Most of this has been gifted to me by American soccer people, but I figure I should share the wealth. And what better way to do that than with our listeners, our subscribers, our members, because we do have a membership now that you can sign up for. It's just one level, get you access to the Discord, which is already a thing. People are talking and communicating, and I'm talking about the logging of my items so I can give an inventory to people in there. It's a process. Anyway, you can join up and join in and do that. And I'll give you something. More than likely at some point in your fandom of this show, I will give you something.
Yeah, definitely know some soccer nerds out there that would love to peek through that inventory of soccer randomness that you've garnered.
Who wouldn't want a San Antonio Scorpion scarf, which is kind of right there as I try to figure out how to put my finger and point to it. Yeah, San Antonio Scorpions don't even exist anymore as that team.
I got to say, Jason, that was class finger pointing. I mean, you got right on the Scorpion at first attempt.
I got some Michigan representation up there with Lansing United is back there. Like this is a range. There's a lot of stuff, and that's just the scarves. Again, there's lots of stuff here that I can share. So sign up for the membership scheme, and you will be on the list to receive some swag or some tchotchkes or some ephemera from Jason Davis's American Soccer Collection.
Oh, ephemera, man. Good wordage this morning. Getting me out of my funk here with your vocabulary. You can also support us at coffee.com/morningkickaround. We got a number of memberships there, some followers there. You can get some key or exclusive content there. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. We got some big donations over there, too, on Friday. Promise to give everyone shout-outs each and every week.
I can do that right now if you want me to. I mean, Wednesday seems like a good day to do it. Shout out to Brian T., who hit us up on Coffee, Ko-Fi. Matthew Basner, who gave us a big chunk of change. That's our guy. Shout out to Matthew. Alan Jacobson. Let's see. Huey0328 says, keep up the great content with ProRel. I don't know if we've already hit some of these people. Probably have. Mike Standish, Jam, Brian T he's got a recurring situation going on. Leo, Hector, Terrence, Mike Thomas, Luke. I think we've hit up all those people. So thank you very much.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Looking to grow this thing, and so that's a great start.
Is this our first one of these? Is this our first one of these? Oh gosh, I hope this is our first. I think this might be our first. This might be a momentous occasion on Morning Kick Around. It's called football. Wing hero or arrow or whatever.
Hero.
Call it what we want, okay? That's a different show. Never mind. Damn it. Yeah, we're football, gaucho, whatever, floorball, whatever we want to call it.
We're football fluid here, guys.
Yeah.
Come on. We can call it whatever we want. Also, to round up this admin segment we got going here, follow along on social media at MKickaround. We are on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Thanks for everyone for following over there. That's growing there a bit too. And finally, if you want to write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com is how you do that. All right, I'm ready for long balls. You ready for long balls?
Let's do it.
All right, Wednesday's long balls here on Morning Kick Around. Long ball number 1 here on Morning Kick Around. My name's Robert. He's Jason Davis. The Italian championship could be decided by a playoff. As Americans, do we want to see this? Napoli and Inter are tied on points and drew both of their league matchups. So in Italy, unbeknownst to me, hasn't happened in generations. But with this situation, if they are still tied at the end of the season, a playoff for the Serie A championship.
Do we want a woman with a British accent to explain this to us? Do we want that?
Yes, that would be lovely.
Okay. Let's go. Here we go.
Serie A could be decided by a dramatic playoff game. Inter Milan and Napoli are level on 71 points with 5 games to go. So if they finish the season level on points, because both their league games finished 1-1, a title-deciding playoff match would be arranged. Inter currently have a better goal difference, so they get to host the all-or-nothing game. If it's a draw at 90 minutes, there'd be no extra time and the playoff would go straight to penalties to crown the champions. In 2022, Serie A reintroduced the playoff rule, which is also used for relegation, having scrapped it in 2005. But it's only been used once to decide the title. That was in 1964, where Inter lost to Bologna. Inter won last season's Serie A and are through to the semi-finals of the Champions League and the Coppa Italia, while Napoli, who won the title in 2023, aren't involved in any other competitions.
All right.
Oh boy. So as Americans, how do we feel about an Italian league championship being decided by a playoff? So many things happening. First time since 1960 this, 1960 that. We are on the edge of history these days. Everywhere we turn.
Look, the chances are that it won't come down to a playoff. With 5 matches left, there's a chance that we won't end up with a dead tie, with a flat-footed tie at the end of the Serie A season. But I'm going to say I want this. I do want this to happen. I would love to see this. And I'm not going to stand here and argue that playoffs are better for determining champions all the time. Like, I'm not going to say, well, you know what they should do? They should just have the top 4 or 6 or 8 teams qualify for a playoff tournament at the end of the Serie A season, and that team should be the champion. I'm not doing that. I'm okay with the way we do it here because we're Americans, and we established playoffs as a means for determining champions a long time ago, many moons ago, Robert, back when they were driving buggies around. We were like, you know what's cool? Playoffs. Over there in Europe, they don't like those. They don't do that. Not really. They
do it for different things. They do it for different things.
They do. They obviously do it for that third playoff spot in the championship, or that third promotion spot rather, to go to the Premier League. We always love the promotion playoff. That's a very exciting thing. But they don't do it to define who the champion is, to determine that team. Again, what's interesting to me here is that Serie A reinstituted this playoff a couple years ago when everybody else is like, you know what, we need 6 tiebreakers so we don't have. They're trying to avoid at all costs this kind of situation. But if you make it special, if it only happens once a generation or once every 3 or 4 generations at this point, Sure, why not? Why not do it? It could be one of the greatest games on the planet this season.
Yeah, no doubt. And just hurrah, hurrah for soccer or football that, I've been watching this my whole life. Didn't know that this was a possibility. I honestly didn't.
Yeah.
And we learn new things each and every single day covering this game.
Do you think it's possible though that the Italians do this one-off playoff to determine the Scudetto winner this season, and they're like, "That was great. Let's do more playoffs."
Let's do it every year, boys. But I do got to say, though, as far as like the different versions of playoffs, I like the German approach of the relegation promotion playoff, like the second to last or third to last German team in the Bundesliga plays the second or third place Segunda division. That is now that's some nerve-wracking stuff, and proves if which team better. If the second division team just like gets absolutely creamed by the first division, then meritocracy won.
Well, I do think that obviously creates an extra barrier for that lower division team to be promoted, which, it's a protection for the top level team, right? And I think, there are different ways to protect top level teams from going down. In Mexico, and go watch the video I did with Cesar Hernandez where we talk about the Mexican pro rel situation, which is not happening now. But when they did have it, they were doing math. They were like averaging numbers over multiple tournaments and all this stuff. And they were doing that so that teams would not be sent down based on one bad season. Because in Mexico, despite them not having rules around budgets, they do certainly have a level of parity with 17 games in a tournament that could upend a Chivas or a Club America or a Monterrey. And you don't want those teams going down. That would be really bad for business in Mexico. Obviously, we're also talking about what this looks like in USL coming up in a couple years. And I can imagine that it's not unlikely that we will see, hey, let's do a playoff like they do in Germany, like you talked about, Rob. Something like that. It gives one more opportunity for the top division team to stay up rather than be dropped down. And maybe there's a couple of seasons before we see anybody relegated from the USL, because what you do is you put 12 teams in your top division and you keep adding until you hit the right number. And then you say, okay, now we'll do relegation. I do think that takes some of the fun out of this for us who are looking forward to Pro Rel and USL, but I can understand it too.
Long ball number 2 here for Wednesday. CONCACAF Champions Cup returns tonight. Vancouver Whitecaps hosting Miami, 2 of MLS's best teams this season. But brings up the question:
First of all, let me issue a correction. This game is tomorrow night. This game is not tonight. It is tomorrow night.
Thursday
in Vancouver.
night.
Thursday night in Vancouver. Thank you. I just fix that so we don't send out bad information. Why Thursday? I don't know. I don't know why it's Thursday and not Wednesday night. We do have a CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinal first leg happening tonight, and that's Tigres and Cruz Azul. So the 2 Mexican teams on the other side of the bracket will play in Monterrey tonight in their first leg. But Vancouver hosts Miami tomorrow. I think this is interesting because you have a number of players hurt on the Vancouver side, and yet they're still the best team in MLS. They knocked off 2 teams from Mexico in this tournament already. They're going up against the best MLS team over the last season and a half in terms of Inter Miami and the points they put out. Will Lionel Messi do his usual 90-minute shift on what I had recently described to me by a former MLS coach as the worst surface that he has ever played on or had a team play on? He said it was a crime that they were allowed to get away with that surface in Vancouver. That's how I'll say his name, Adrian Heath. Adrian Heath told me that when he coached in Major League Soccer, he could not believe they were allowed to play on that surface in Vancouver. And look, they obviously do, and they've been successful, and nobody's telling them they can't. And we just keep moving forward. But if would you risk Lionel Messi on that surface if you're Javier Mascherano, if you're Inter Miami, no matter how important the CONCACAF Champions Cup is to you?
There's certainly been superstar players that played in Major League Soccer that omitted that trip to Vancouver in the past. So that's a big question in a big leg 1 of a 2-legged matchup between Vancouver and Miami. Major League Soccer, 2 of the 3 best teams. We had a video last week about, choose your fighter. between Columbus, Miami, and Vancouver. I think between the two of us, what did you pick? You went Vancouver, didn't you?
I did. I cannot deny the vibes. I cannot deny the recent success. It is a recency bias pick because Columbus has been excellent over multiple seasons. Miami's been incredible over multiple seasons in the regular season. But I think you take the hot team right now, ride the hot hand, and that's the Vancouver Whitecaps.
And what is Vancouver's standout, quality? I mean, we obviously know that Wilfred Nancy and the system and everything they put together in Columbus, the superstars and the supporting cast that they put together in Inter Miami. And then in Vancouver, there was a lot of doubts. A lot of people picked them to be not a great team at all. And here they are leading the way in the West. One of the final two survivors from North America or from the Major League Soccer in the continental competition. Like, where did this all come from? Are these underrated players doing better? A hot in the moment. Just good on the form chart.
I think
is this all coalescing?
You have some players who are leveling up, right? And maybe that was always going to come just because of maturation. Sebastian Berhalter has turned into a very, very good player. Breakout star is maybe how you can define him. You have Eddie Ocampo, you have Jaden Nelson, the Canadian, I think injured right now, but you have some players that have improved themselves to a level that's really made this Vancouver team. And they weren't bad last year. Let's remember that Vanni Sartini leveled them up to a certain degree. And maybe it felt unfair that he got fired, but clearly Jesper Sorensen has taken that even further. And again, doing without Ryan Gauld. Brian White was already a very good goal scorer in this league, but he seems to have added extra levels to his game at 29 years old, and that doesn't usually happen. So I think there's that. I would encourage everybody to go read Charlie Boehm's piece at MLSsoccer.com, where he talks to Jesper Sorensen and dives into this and talks about Berhalter and Ocampo and Nelson and these guys. And there is I don't know. There's also this thing about the club being for sale and maybe the threat of a relocation and sort of not knowing. Now, teams can either go, this sucks and we don't want to be here and the performance suffers and they drop down the table, or they could be the kind of club that goes, we have every reason for ourselves to rally and to push forward and show the world, that this isn't affecting us. Or, it's just it doesn't take much, right, for a team to find something to rally around. It could be any number of things, an injury to a teammate. It could be a coach who they love. Maybe he's under pressure. It could be, again, this idea of relocation and a sale and what it means for the future of soccer in Vancouver. For whatever reason, they have figured it out. And again, the most remarkable thing about it is that they didn't just spring the upsets in the Champions Cup where they went down to Mexico and scored draws against two very good teams and advanced. It's also that they're leading the league, right? It's also that they're matching this up with league performance. It's not like focus on the Champions Cup has caused them to suffer, because we've seen that before. We've seen lots of MLS teams go into this competition and go, we want to win the Champions Cup. And you know what? The rest of the league is kind of going to have to be second in priority at the moment. And then they find themselves, they look up in May or June and they go, oh crap, we're in 8th, 9th, 10th place. And so, you that's an easy kind of crutch for MLS clubs in this competition. And Vancouver has not fallen victim to that.
With the ownership and possible relocation tenuous for Vancouver, do you think the leadership there to motivate the season are using the major league method, the film from the early 90s, encouraging them in a way, upstarts to push the league forward? They weren't expected to do much. The ownership wanted to sell them off.
Yeah, I don't know if they can. I don't know if they've turned the owner into the bad guy, right? I don't know if Greg Kerfoot or whoever else, who's the, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Steve Nash or whoever is just somewhat involved now. I don't think they're turning them into the evil owner that they have to, prove wrong and defy and all that stuff. But yeah, there has to be something to be said for, oh, you want to sell this club? Well, we'll show you that you're making a mistake by selling this club, because maybe we will go win a championship.
Those familiar in the chat with Vancouver Whitecaps, who is the Charlie Sheen? Who is the wild thing of the Vancouver Whitecaps? I'd like to hear who is the loose cannon coming in from the bullpen
who's
with
the
the
Ricky
goofy
Vaughn?
glasses. Yeah,
Who's the Ricky Vaughn? Who's the Dorn? Who's the Jake Taylor? Who's the Willie Mays Hayes? This is one of my favorite movies of all time, Rob. So
I love the coach. I love the coach.
Yeah,
his gravelly voice and mustache. Love that.
But yeah. Great. Oh, it was great. All right. Anyway, we'll see if Vancouver can do it tomorrow night and set the tone in this tie against Miami, because I think they will need a multiple goal win to make sure that they advance.
That's, of course, Thursday night. Long ball number 3, Brendan Aronson. Is he an English Premier League player? His Leeds side gained promotion with a 6-0 win versus Stoke. Leeds United getting promoted to the Premier League. Should Brendan Aronson stick around and test his hand at the Premier League once again?
So here's his profile over on FotMob. So let's just look at it. These are his league numbers, right? Okay, so 24 years old, kind of important to put him in the right context age-wise. He's at a point where there might not be a big jump in terms of ability and performance, but, he might have a little bit of improvement left, okay? Interesting to see he's valued at 14 million euros. Keep that in mind as we move forward in this conversation. 9 goals, a couple of assists. He has started 41 of 45 matches this season for Leeds United. He's played in 44. So he has done a ton of work in this team as an attacking midfielder. I'm not going to put too much stock in the FotMob rating, although it kind of does give you a general idea of how he's performed this season. 9 goals in 44 appearances. He's not supposed to be an out-and-out goal scorer, but that assist number is not really great either, in a position where maybe that is your first concern, is setting up your teammates. We know that Brendan Aronson brings a lot of energy to the field. We know that his pressing ability is a major asset in certain circumstances. And I think in the Hurly-Burly Championship, it might be a little bit, even though he's not a physical player, he's a pretty slight guy. I do think that sort of energy can be very useful in the championship. I don't know about the Premier League jump, Rob. I want to believe. I think that we are a little bit of victims of the moment, prisoners of the moment in terms of his national team status. He's not a starter with the U.S. men's national team. He's a French player, right? The idea that he should be called into every camp is kind of up in the air. I don't want to just be a prisoner of that thinking, but I think Brendan Aronson might need to move on. I don't know that going to the Premier League with a team that is going to be threatened by relegation again, no matter what you hope for Leeds, is a good idea.
To me, his standout quality has been his hustle, his fitness, and his ability to get around the field and hustle. But seeing him, his preferred position of play, attacking midfielder, and only 2 assists out of all those minutes, I agree with you that is a little bit of a concern. You wouldn't say that those are the numbers of a offensive maestro. Comment in the chat is Leeds is already looking for.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. How many new players Leeds brings into this team is obviously going to be fascinating to watch, right? Because you cannot stand pat. You cannot go to the Premier League with championship players. It does not work. Ask Burnley how that works out. It does not work. So they're going to make signings. I think it's very likely they'll make a signing at Brendan Aronson's position. Now, Nate, shout out to Nate, who's a member, has to take advantage of the possibility for redemption, wise or not. So Nate is saying stick around because you have to prove you can play at that level after what happened the last time Leeds was in the Premier League. I don't know, man. I think if there's always there will always be an opportunity to play your way up to that level if you are scoring goals and creating assists somewhere else. Maybe there's another league. Maybe a move back to Germany would be a good idea for Brendan Aronson. I don't know. If we're talking about playing at the top level, it doesn't have to be the Premier League, is what I'm saying for Brendan Aronson. Now, is anybody going to come in at 14 million euros for Brendan Aronson right now? The market for him might not be very deep outside of England. If there is interest in England, is there a championship side who sees what he did with Leeds this year and the role he played in promotion and thinks that's a guy we need? These things are big questions. My gut says go. Get out of Leeds. Probably stay in the championship. Maybe help somebody else get promoted. You're still 24. There could be a move to the Premier League in the next couple seasons.
You also got to note his availability. He stays fit. If you look at his numbers of all his appearances this year, 45. This is league appearances, 45. The year before that, Union Berlin, 38. When he was with Leeds 2 seasons ago, again, 42 appearances, 41 for Salzburg before that. I mean, there is something to be noted for knowing if you have maybe he's a mob rated a 6 or a 7. Every single game is available to you. That is a very useful quality, especially in the championship with the huge amount of numbers, knowing that you have a player that maybe isn't going to break any records or, be the best player even on the field during any particular game, but the consistency and the availability is notable. And you got to think, kind of factors into his like how many teams would want him based on like a player will always be available for selection.
Yeah, and look, I just think it's a fair assessment of Brendan Aronson is that he's not a Premier League starter. So if you are willing to be a squad player and maybe get 5, 6, 7 starts in a Premier League season over 38 games, play some cup matches, play in the FA Cup, play in the League Cup, okay, maybe you stick around. Maybe you do. But if you want to play every week, if you want to not 44 games, maybe, although that's, again, the championship, because of how many times you play, there's opportunity there. If you imagine yourself to be a U.S. men's national team player, you have to be playing every week. And that's the other factor here. And I don't know that players should always be thinking about their national team prospects when they consider their club status. But there is definitely that thing of, if you want to be in Pochettino's picture, and Pochettino's already kind of set Brendan Aronson to the side a little bit, again, comes into the team when there's an injury, comes into the team when there's not other options. I think Brendan Aronson, if he's looking at that with clear eyes, has to say, I got to be playing every week, and I might have to up my level if I want to be playing in a World Cup in 2026.
Have you guys subscribed? If you haven't, hit the button. We crashed through 2,000 subscribers, working towards 2,500 and beyond. If you haven't hit the button, do so now. Then tell your people about it. We are working towards becoming one of the centers of the American soccer conversation. And without folks to talk with, it's not as good. So the more people in the chat following, a lot more things open up when you hit that subscribe button. And now we have memberships, so join that membership role. We listed everyone at the top of the hour, so join that group. You're pointing at me. What you got, Jason?
No, I want people to jump in and be part of what we're doing here, moving towards 2026 ourselves, right? And wanting to be ready to be a center of American soccer coverage and discussion and the community of it. That's the part I love about this, right? So I do a national radio show every day. And it's sort of a one-way street. I mean, we have some callers and we have text messages and stuff, and there's some interactive element. I love radio for that reason. But what we get to do here, as you look at our beautiful faces, is also respond to you guys, be in the chat, create the community through the Discord. If you become a member, you get access to the Discord. That's going to be an awesome place. Again, probably be sending out some of my American soccer memorabilia, which is, I think, the 5th word I've used to describe the stuff that I have at some point in the near future. So get on that list. We're working on more perks and everything else. We're going to have member videos that are just for people signed up. Hopefully have a lot more interviews and really interesting things to talk about with people that you and I know in American soccer, Rob, because we've got a pretty deep, is Rolodex a word that people understand, or do I need to say like phone book or
You have a dense, lengthy phone book, sure.
I have a lot of group chats. I don't know. I don't actually have a lot of group chats, but a lot of phone numbers. I got a lot of people in my phone that I can contact for conversations on soccer in America. We're going to have a great one here in a couple of minutes.
We sure are. To follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, or write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And another place to support, coffee.com/morning. Kick around. All right, we got a guest awaiting. We are going to talk about Major League Soccer sales and much more here on Morning Kick Around. Just one sec. American soccer is weird here on on morning kick around. And what I was trying to say, a major league soccer team has been sold. To talk about that, valuations of teams, and maybe a little bit of USL. We've got special guest Simon Evans, U.S. sports correspondent for AFP and the host of The Soccer Business. Simon Evans, welcome to Morning Kick Around, sir.
Good to see you again, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, reoccurring guest.
Yeah, maybe one of the first. I can't remember if we've had somebody else come back. Second reoccurring guest, but good to have Simon back. Appreciate your time, Simon. Yes, I reached out to Simon because Real Salt Lake has been sold, and what you'll see in the headlines is that Real Salt Lake has been sold for $600 million, but that's not exactly the story, right, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, if we break down that figure, that's a number that's come out through the media. We know how that works. It's not the official number. They don't give away the official number. No one sees the contract. But, you know, when every outlet reports 600 million, it's usually somebody's given a nod somewhere down the line that you're not far away. You're not far away with that. So let's work with that 600 million. That includes an awful lot of real estate. That has to be said. Yeah. This is not 600 million for the right to operate the RSL franchise in MLS. That includes the stadium. That's a lot of land and a lot of money. It includes the training ground, which usually training grounds are even more land, less facilities, less money-making potential, but a lot of land involved in that. And it includes another stadium, the smaller 5,000 stadium that RSL's Monarchs, the MLS Next Pro team, plays at. So that's a chunk of money. I mean, you know, we haven't seen the contract. We don't know how much all that real estate is valued at. But you have to subtract that from the 600 million in terms of looking at what is an MLS team worth.
Can I also throw in, Simon, that the NWSL team, is that part of the package as well, the Utah Royals?
It is. So the Utah Royals are included in that package. Now, how much is that worth? If you look at what Denver paid for their expansion fee, it was somewhere between 100 and 125 million. Various reports on that. So let's say 100. Let's go low end on it. That's 100, the valuation of an NWSL franchise at the moment in terms of an expansion fee. David Blitzer, who bought RSL just less than 3 years ago, who's now selling his majority ownership in the club, sold it. He actually was able to reactivate that NWSL franchise for $2 million. So if you know, that's a good little bit of business he's done there. That's for sure.
So the group that buys this package is Miller Sports and Entertainment, also owners of the Utah Jazz. You know, that is this thing about the $2 million for the Utah Royals and you know, the Blitzer, and obviously if you go back in the history of this club, they had the Delory Hansen situation was kind of unfolded quickly, and maybe that the club was originally sold then at a cut rate because of how that all went down. I don't know how you see that, Simon. This is also, if I'm not mistaken, the smallest market in Major League Soccer, if not the smallest, one of the smallest. So yeah. How do we pick apart what the valuation of this MLS team is when we know that down in San Diego they're paying $500 million to get into the league?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, the valuations around RSL before the sale, the things that come out in the likes of Forbes and Sportico and those big numbers that generate a lot of excitement in the league office, is the RSL in Forbes was around 500 million valuated at. So it doesn't seem actually that far away from it. You know, for a team, yes, taking into account all that real estate and the women's team. But it's not miles away. I mean, it's not 600 million in that sense, but it's a decent valuation of them, I think, really. The comparison, you know, I've been skeptical of MLS valuations, and you know, you hear people say, and I've said it, the only real valuation that counts is what someone's willing to pay for it, right? Well, this is what they've paid for it. They've paid 600 million. It includes the stadium, but the stadium is part of the club. It's not like it's some extraneous add-on retail park or something. It's part of running a soccer club. I think what it does raise questions about is how much are MLS franchises that don't own real estate, don't own their own stadium, how much are those worth compared to the very high valuations that we've seen emerge over the last year or so?
Keeping current events in this, do you think that the changing of the landscape, the proposal of perhaps a calendar change or even different leagues going with maybe adopting promotion and relegation, do you think that that would impact valuations of MLS sides moving forward?
No, I don't think so. I mean, possibly the calendar switch could impact some teams, and there's an uncertainty there at the moment, isn't there? Because what does it mean for Minnesota and Toronto FC if that goes ahead? We're all presuming that there'll be contingency plans put in place so that those teams play on the road in the south of the USA for a lot of the winter. But it clearly is going to impact their business in some way. So you would think that risk factor would be calculated in. The USL Pro Rel stuff, I don't really see impacting MLS's valuations. No, I mean, it may, you could argue it adds some confusion to the market in general. I would say if you were looking for some external factor that might impact it, the possibility of foreign leagues playing games in the US market,
Yeah.
that is something that if I was an investor, I would be a little bit concerned about, at least.
Are we talking about a difference? We're just talking, look, I own a home, Simon. I'm lucky enough to have bought before things kind of went crazy in the area that I'm in. The houses I was looking at were in a certain level. I'm, making a nice living, but I'm by no means wealthy. But just a mile from me, there are houses that, are $2 and $3 and $4 million that I could never even imagine affording. To me, this kind of feels like that when we talk about MLS and USL. You're talking about, people like buying into the San Diego expansion team that are wealthy, and then you have some people that are buying into USL rather, or thinking about USL, who are on a they certainly have some money, but they're not in that same stratosphere.
Yeah, it's the millionaires billionaires dichotomy, really, isn't it? And I think USL, that's their USP. It's affordable to get in, and you spend your money not on a massive fee to get in. You spend your money on building a stadium and building out your club and marketing it to your community and so on. That's USL's USP, and I don't really. That's why I don't really totally understand why they are focusing so much on a Division One league, when really the strength of what USL's doing is in those smaller markets. I mean, it is what's happening in some of those USL 2 and USL 1 clubs. They're the great stories. The small communities that are getting 7,000 or 8,000 turning up, 9,000, 10,000. The AV alters of this world who come along and create something in their community. They're the great stories. And I have confidence in those markets to do really well, and other markets like that. Do I have confidence in USL to go into big markets and compete with MLS? No, I don't really, because when you look at it, yes, they're in Miami, yes, they're in Las Vegas, but look at those two clubs and what kind of attendances they get. So there's the difference between theory and practice there with that. But, I don't think it impacts MLS massively. It would do if they started really doing the Division One league and started moving into MLS markets. That would obviously be a factor.
On your latest episode of The Soccer Business, you welcomed in USL President Paul McDonough. Did he have any comments in relation to what those new small town teams are doing for the leagues?
Yeah, no, he was very bullish, as you'd expect, really, about that, and also about the big teams. The interesting things, the interesting takeaways from it. It's just a 30-minute interview, but he did say that they've had foreign interest since they've made their big announcements. He specifically mentioned German clubs and English clubs, maybe not owning teams, but coming in some sort of partnership or equity role in it. That was interesting. And also, I said to him, look, are you looking mainly at markets that MLS aren't in? Yeah, that seems to be, there's some area of room for growth there, and a lot of people like me who don't take a side in the soccer wars will say great, MLS can't be everywhere, so let's have these teams. And he actually said, there are cities with 7 or 8 million people which could support 2 teams in 2 different leagues, which I thought was a interesting comment.
I'd be curious to know how selective USL will be with those things. If somebody says, if they come in and they say, all right, I've got 8 figures to throw at you, are they just going to say, sure, go ahead, take your shot? Or are they going to be kind of very careful about where they allow teams to pop up? Because look, if you're selling the idea that this is a lower level of access, it's easier to get in, then it's kind of hard to put up barriers and say, well, no, actually your idea isn't quite what we want. But you obviously don't want the league to run into a bunch of clubs that ultimately fail. And not everything is rosy. I mean, Loudoun United just got an expose by Pablo Maurer at The Athletic, in which it was, mentioned that the ownership there is not putting money into that club. And maybe that's a specific example because of how that club was born, Simon. But there is still going to be that concern that there will be owners who won't really invest in their teams, and ultimately those clubs could die on the vine.
Yeah, and there's always been this issue, let's be frank, with soccer outside of MLS over the last decade or so, this gap between theory and practice. I remember when the new old NASL came along, and the owners there were saying, we have no salary cap. MLS has got a salary cap. They restrict themselves. We can go out and sign anyone in the world because we're not telling our clubs you can't spend on players. And I was like, great. Let's see who you signed then. Right, Raul came into the New York Cosmos. That created some excitement, and that was it. No one went. Landon Donovan didn't switch from MLS to the NASL because there was no salary cap, right? And there's still too much of that around, Miami FC here, nobody watches them. Like, the only people in the ground, there's like a couple of hundred people. There's virtually no fan base. Las Vegas Lights. Now, of course, we can talk about Louisville. We can talk about Detroit City. We can talk about Sacramento and other clubs that are doing really, really well. But is that the environment? What I want to see is if those teams are going to happen, that they're not Las Vegas Lights and they're not Miami FC, that they're like serious ownership groups. And Paul did say that they're going to do some serious vetting of these people coming in to make sure they've got things right.
Let me come back to the sale of RSL and the situation with Major League Soccer club valuations. I mean, as you said, the club is worth what somebody will pay for it. I think we had a very good, astute message from somebody. The way I think a club valuation is like buying a house instead of buying a business. It's a pricey asset that doesn't make day-to-day money, that can be sold for a profit in 10 years' time, right? It's a real estate investment, but it's not. It's a business that kind of gets treated that way. I mean, certainly that's the case at the top end of the game, right? And sometimes you see people buying clubs and you're like, well, this isn't money making. Why are you doing this? And again, it's because maybe it will grow in valuation as leagues become more popular or broadcast money comes in, and they just want to be attached to something, right? They also want the thrill of being attached to that. Major League Soccer probably has a little bit of that happening, Simon. There is one club that is on the sale block. We know this for a fact, and it's Vancouver Whitecaps. I don't know how unique their situation is. Obviously, the stadium is a concern, but how do you think the RSL sale impacts the Vancouver situation?
I think it's very different because from what I read of the Vancouver situation, they announced a couple of weeks ago, they'd already announced they were up for sale. When they announced they were up for sale, the wording was quite interesting. We sometimes dismiss press releases, but sometimes there are little clues in there. And they were saying they were looking for people who can take them on to the next level. And this ties into something I've heard a little bit around MLS, which is if the league is going to start spending more in the next few years and is looking to do something beyond Messi, which is also big and bringing in big players and so on, then there are certain owners who can't compete with that and don't want to be in that position. But then when Vancouver comes out a couple of weeks ago and said they've got a plan for a stadium, an idea for a stadium, a proposal, and you start to think, okay, are they looking for people to come in and buy a majority or a minority stake in that club to help them finance a big project for their own soccer-specific stadium? It looks a bit like that to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, Simon Evans, thank you so much for joining us once again, recurring guest here on Morning Kick-Round. Let the listeners know where they can find your great work.
Yeah, it's I'm at SG Evans on Twitter and Blue Sky, And the soccer business is at thesoccerbusiness.com.
Well, thank you so much. We will keep an eye out for these progressing stories and your great work. Viewers, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, what's going on? Hit subscribe. Join the MK Ultras, the listening group for this fine program. We've crashed through 2,000 subscribers. So that means Jason might just send you some soccer paraphernalia. There's memberships available now, which will get you perks like early access to videos, priority commenting, and more. You can also find us on the social media at MKickround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can also write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or also support us, coffee.com/morningkickaround. All right, we're going to catch our breath and come right back with the hottest of topics here on Wednesday on Morning Kick Around. Hot topic here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert. He's Jason. Question for you. Why did United States Soccer feel the need to publish a 4-minute video with head coach Mauricio Pochettino talking about Pochettino? Oh, excuse me. I saw your eyebrow. The mispronunciation eyebrow went up. Why did U.S. Soccer publish a 4-minute video about playing with pride?
Yeah, it's a little bit more. It was framed up. If you do not follow U.S. Soccer on YouTube, it was framed up as kind of a Gold Cup preview interview with Mauricio Pochettino, the head coach of the US men's national team, which is months away. It's certainly not now. It's not happening today, right? It's not happening next week. It's not happening even within the next month. It is happening a ways off, and it is a 4-minute and 47-second interview, which is so short. Like, what can you get into in 4 minutes and 47 seconds? Very little. It is titled "Sit Down Interview with Mauricio Pochettino on CONCACAF Gold Cup and More." That's okay. 4 minutes of interview. Why are we doing this? I'm going to play for you a selected portion of that interview. But before I do, I think this might explain why we got that interview. And this is going to be Bruce Arena on the Unfiltered podcast with Landon Donovan and Tim Howard. They were talking about old times. They were talking about, the beginnings of MLS and Bruce's playing career and some other things and his attitude. But here is Bruce Arena talking specifically about the state of the U.S. men's national team and some issues that have come to the fore in our discussion about the
Every
U.S.
national team in the world, the coach is usually a domestic coach.
Yeah.
And I think when you have coaches that don't know our culture, our environment, our players, it's hard. And and listen, I'm sure our coach is a very good coach. Coaching international football is different than club football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a completely different job. People ask me all the time, "Hey, what did you like this or that? What you like better?" I go, "They're two different jobs."
Totally. Yeah.
They're two different jobs, and people don't understand that. Yeah. And I think when you're a national team coach, you need to know your environment. You need to know the animals you're coaching. Yeah. And we're lacking that. And if you're an American coach in the U.S. team, you know the culture, you know the pride, and how important the national team is. I think when you bring in somebody from the outside, they don't understand it, and especially in our country, because we're so different. So, you ask me, do we lack that kind of pride? I mean, I'm watching. I'm shocked. I'm shocked that we can't beat Panama and Canada. It was shocking to me, and I don't want to be disrespectful. I want them to do great in the World Cup. There's no question about it. But we only have a year left now. Yeah. The time is running out, and they got to get going.
Okay, so that's Bruce Arena. Was he taking shots, Rob? Do you think he took some shots in there, or was it was he trying to be even-handed, but it still came across as pretty critical of the guy in charge of the national team?
That's a very Bruce Arena comment there. I think saying something in a very padded and gentle way, but the actual underlying point is actually pretty harsh and hard-hitting. Like, in a sense, in a very kindly way, I almost think that he was saying that Pochettino's out of the depth, to be honest, and like he's a beast not meant for this world, sort of a statement.
This idea of American soccer exceptionalism, right? It's a hard one because people like Bruce say it, and occasionally we'll have that debate when there's a change in the national team head coach. It is a question. Does this person need to be American to understand American players? Now, there's also that factoid that gets pulled out, which is that no foreign coach has ever won a World Cup. It's always a domestic coach. But of course, there's only 6 countries that have ever won a World Cup to begin with.
Yeah, so the narrow cast it a little bit there.
And all of those countries prioritize this sport at a level that we do not in the United States. So I think that's comparing apples and oranges, and I think that's a red herring you shouldn't be pulled aside by. This thing, though, the idea that you need to understand the mentality, I don't know. Maybe there is something to that. And or maybe it's not even necessarily the mentality that you need to understand, because who understands playing for the shirt and bleeding for your country more than an Argentinian, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it is that thing about you don't connect directly with the country if you are not a citizen or if you haven't lived there. I think Jurgen Klinsmann might get a little bit of a pass on this because he lived in the United States for a very long time, right? And he was sort of Americanized in a way that Pochettino clearly is not. Now, again, this is sort of the thing that, and I don't know that the timing of this is necessarily connected. I don't want to say that U.S. Soccer put out a 4-minute video or 4.5-minute video of Mauricio Pochettino talking about pride, which you're going to hear in a second, because Bruce Arena said this, because Bruce is not the first person to bring this up. After the Nations League fail, there was lots of discussion about a lack of pride on the part of the U.S. men's national team. But clearly that reflects back on Pochettino if he's the guy in charge. If the team isn't playing with pride, why aren't they playing with pride? And Mauricio Pochettino, why aren't you getting them to play with pride? And so again, I don't know that these are connected, Rob, but the timing seems very coincidental.
Well, you drew a parallel between these two clips, and do you think that United States Soccer Federation is sensitive enough?
Yes.
To these voices, especially the Landons, the Howards, the Bruce. I think that, they hold a lot of weight within those halls.
I have run afoul of U.S. Soccer. I'm not going to say I have a bad relationship right now. I kind of don't have a relationship with U.S. Soccer at the moment. I don't directly interact with U.S. Soccer the way that I used to. I used to know people over there. We used to go back and forth. I would get guests on my radio show. It was a thing. You're working hard to figure out how to grow the sport in America. You're kind of doing it together. Now, I was never going to pull my punches, right? And I think U.S. Soccer has a pretty strong and pretty well won reputation of being protectionist about their wanting to control the message, being heavy-handed when it comes to who is allowed to talk to the media and how they're allowed. Now, there are some people that I think as long as you are fairly respectful, you're going to get in the door. But it doesn't mean that they're always going to respond well. And I do think, and I don't know that this video is necessarily Pochettino doing this. Could be somebody else at U.S. Soccer, and things have changed a little bit in the last couple of years. But U.S. Soccer absolutely has been known for being like, "Oh, how dare you!" And so let's hear from Pochettino, because you tell me, and I've included questions, and I've edited this a bit because there's a part where it's just like the Gold Cup's a challenge. Yeah, we know, Mauricio, it is, but I've included some questions because of the framing. So here we go.
Build a competitive mindset in the players against opponents that might be perceived as underdogs.
The mindset must be there, because the right mindset, no? Because I think we need to compete for our flag, our country, and it's not enough sometimes to come and to play. What we want to add to this group, the player, and to the team, is the possibility to optimize every single area. But this area is really important because I think provide you the possibility to be in your peak and perform in your best. If not, only is talent that is sometimes useful, because if you don't have the right mindset to approach the game, that is why we are going to work, and also we need to be intelligent in the way that we are going to select the characters. No select only talent and names, if not to have a good balance, to provide the team the right characters to be really competitive.
I'm going to pause it there. There's another question, we'll get to it. But that sounds very much like he's just responding directly to this idea that he's not picking players who really care about playing for the U.S. men's national team. Am I wrong?
No, not at all. And I think it's notable to see that obviously top level managers and coaches of all stripes use their words very intentionally. And at the opening of this answer, he says "we" and "our" about half a dozen times, really trying to bring himself remove any sort of a gap between him as a coach and him as the coach of the national team. He's trying to connect those with those words.
I would also like to acknowledge here, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but we've clearly got some sort of strange green screen backdrop thing happening here, right?
Does this look impromptu to you?
It does, right? It's between two ferns with Mauricio Pochettino is what it kind of looks like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's sitting there. We've got some weird decoration that doesn't really I don't understand what's happening here in that regard. Like, unless this is just literally, I don't know where he was. Like, he might not be in the United States of America, but they said, "Hey, Poach, we need you to do a video because we got to kind of counter this idea that there's an issue of selecting players for pride with the U.S. men's national team." And they popped him in front of a green screen and they threw up you listen to the audio even, right? This does not feel like a production. It feels like we just got a camera. Let's just do something real quick. Let's continue.
What factors will you consider when picking the roster?
At the moment so far, we wanted to know as much of the player as possible, players that were playing in abroad of MLS, and then MLS player. And I think after nearly 1 year, I think we have good knowledge about every single player that maybe we need to discover and to also to see. But I think we have a better now picture about our players.
What will success in the Gold Cup mean to you and this group of players?
It's to compete well. It's to match the opponent because the opponent always, when play against USA, have the motivation, and to give their best. And we need to feel the same. We need to match. We need to match all this in this area. But always it's about to win. Even when you lose, I think you can lose, but I think showing that you are competitive and you deserve maybe to win, and sometimes for many factors you cannot win. But I think it's important for us to start to be serious in the way that we will take the competition. It's not only to come here for us or for the player and to say, okay, we are going to spend nice time in my country, or I'm going to enjoy playing. No, it's about to fight for your proud, for the people that would love to be in your position, for million of kids that they are going to see us and dream to be one day there. Is this type of responsibility and commitment we need to show in different way that what we did in the last time in Los Angeles.
You tell me that doesn't sound like a guy who's directly responding to criticism that came out of that Nations League.
I don't think you have to read too far between the lines. And then going back to the production value of the video itself, I mean, that to me, I feel like he is in the corner of the lobby where he was. They threw it's either a green screen or so just like some green uplighting that could just be the hotel light. And then I don't think he even has a lav mic on. I think that's the camera mic. Yes. And then a comment in here is like a press shirt would have been nice. This definitely seemed impromptu, and he's even holding his glasses in his hand like he was like walking through the lobby going about his business. And like, Patch, hey, why don't you take a seat and we'll get a couple minutes of you answering a couple questions from our press officer here.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that was a press officer. It could have been somebody on his staff. It could have been an American who was attached to his staff. As he does the job or whatever that is in the moment. I mean, is he in Europe somewhere scouting players, going to games, watching U.S. men's national team players do their thing? He might be, and that's part of it. I do think it's telling also that when I went over to YouTube and I saw this and it popped up on my feed. I mean, I wasn't like, oh, what's happening on the U.S. soccer channel? I saw this on my feed because I follow U.S. soccer on YouTube, and I looked at the comments, and like the third comment, which think is very much indicative of the state of things in American soccer fandom. The third comment was something like, you haven't even talked to Nathaniel Brown, who is a German-American player right now at Eintracht Frankfurt. He's a left back. He's 21. He's like, you haven't even talked to Nathaniel Brown. Don't talk to us until you've made that contact, right? Basically, kind of accusing Mauricio Pochettino of failing to do his job, right? That the allegation is, and look, I don't believe for a second that Mauricio Pochettino is unaware of Nathaniel Brown. Okay, I don't believe that for a second. I think he's a smart guy. He's a football coach. He knows all the players that are eligible for the United States who might be there to be called up. By the way, should be mentioned also, Nathaniel Brown has played with the German U21s. So maybe a la Jermaine Jones, until it's pretty clear he's not going to play for Germany, he may not be eligible, or he may not be available to the United States of America. So I don't know. So, but this is again, the mentality thing has really seeped in. This idea that the U.S. men's national team has lost the spirit and the fight has really seeped in, and it does seem as though messaging is important to U.S. soccer at the moment.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, that could have been this whole like naturalized or domestic coach could have been nullified with good results, right? It's like, oh, foreign coaches hadn't won the World Cup before, but he's doing great, so that's out of mind. But with the less than mediocre, would you call his start of his tenure disastrous? Borderline disastrous?
Borderline disastrous. Borderline disastrous. Yeah, I mean, look, it almost seems unfair because there just hasn't been that many opportunities for him, right? It's not as though he's got 30 games under his belt and we can judge him by that, right? It's the sample size. Does that mean we should give him a pass on some level? But it's enough of a start, and it's not even what 8 months into this? Not even
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his actual first opportunity to coach the U.S. men's national team, what was that? November window? October? Was it October? I don't. Again,
it's murky.
It just happened, and yet I still feel like this has been really bad to start. And I don't know if I'm being unfair to him. I don't know if anybody else could have done better, I guess is my point.
I think this all really puts the focus on what a weird and strangely important Gold Cup it's going to be this summer.
I know.
Usually the Gold Cup can just be like a great way for the B team or some people to work their way into the team or this or that. But with the Club World Cup muddling things, the World Cup being next year and him probably being on the hot seat already in a way, like if the timeline with the World Cup wasn't there, that's almost his finish line as it is now. But if the Gold Cup is a crash and burn dumpster fire, if they go out in the Gold Cup or the semis or something, don't even make it to the final, is there another conversation to be had? Another coaching search coming?
Maybe. And I know Tim Weah will not be available. I can assume that means Weston McKennie won't be available. I don't know what Gio Reyna's situation at Dortmund is going to be, although I'm not sure I'm counting on Gio Reyna that much anyway. These are the teams that have Americans who are involved in the Club World Cup. Those players are going to play in the Club World Cup. They're not going to play in Gold Cup. So again, but at that same, again, it's like, oh, well, give Mauricio Pochettino a bit of a pass. He won't have some of his best players. But at the same time, this is what coaches have to deal with. Sometimes your best players are not available. Injuries happen. Other things happen. You might go into a World Cup and one or two key players will be injured or unavailable. What do you do then? Figure it out.
It'll be very interesting to keep our eye on the national team this summer. How does it go in the Gold Cup? Subscribe. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, guys. We are doing great. The MK Ultra fan group, the listeners group, what should we call it? Supporters of the show. They are growing each and every single day.
We're not calling them MK Ultras anymore. Did you say that, or did I miss something?
Yeah, I said MK Ultras, the supporters group, but I don't know if that's the right classification of the MK.
They're just the Ultras. They're just the Ultras. Yeah, they're the diehards. They're the, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. I interrupted.
Now that we crashed through 2,000 subscribers, Jason is organizing his bric-a-braca of soccer wonders that you can see a sample of behind him there. So join in, get in that pool, and help us continue growing the MK Ultras. Follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us an email. morningkickaround@gmail.com. You can also support via coffee.com/morningkickaround. You can do a one-time or reoccurring donation there. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Great show here today. When we come back on Friday, Liverpool might be crowned Premier League champs.
No, hopefully not, because I think they should play. I think they should win. I think they should be like in a game of their own, win that game.
Oh yeah, that's
right.
Oh, of course. Like I am gonna be like working or at a kid's soccer practice during this
Today,
Arsenal
right.
versus Crystal Palace game. So that's not exactly the tearful celebration that I have in my head, but we'll see.
Okay. I would also like to let the people know that today I have a radio show I'm doing in the afternoon with Eric Ronaldo from 5 to 8 on Sirius XM. If you have Sirius XM, check us out, channel 157. If you don't have Sirius XM, maybe try to get a free trial or something and see if you like it, because the soccer channel is great. And then I'm doing the best soccer show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, because I can't get enough. Probably be talking more about Mauricio Pochettino and the state of the U.S. men's national team with Jared Dubois. So find that on YouTube as well. The Best Soccer Show. It's also a podcast.
And for plugging other stuff, look up Oakland County Football Club. I am doing lots of preseason content on that YouTube channel. I'm the play-by-play commentator for the USL2 side, Oakland County Football Club. Look at that preseason content. So I guess we are kicked for the day. We will see you on Friday. And until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer.